Hello, Illuminati. My name is Jeremy Mason McGraw, and I'm the inventor of the original Halumin and the Halumin C. This video, we're going to walk through every part of the Halumin C. I'm going to show you what's in the box, what the different components do, and then tell you a little bit about how to use it. So let's begin with what's in the box. First, you will get the Halumin device itself. It comes in two parts. This is the tower and base module, and this is the viewer lid. This contains all of the electronics and the lights, and this contains a mechanism to get specific features out of this. And it also blocks the ambient light and creates a controlled lighting environment. So a lot of what you're going to use it for, you're going to use it with the lid on, but then it also has some functionality with the lid off. Additionally, in the box, you are going to receive an AC power adapter in this little white box. It is the plug that plugs into the wall and then plugs into the Halumin C itself. In addition to the power adapter, you will get the adjustable pedestal. So this is a little cylinder. You can twist it and you can make it taller and make it shorter. This is the pedestal that you will set a lot of the objects that are unmounted objects on. There is also the coin slab pedestal, and this is made for small slabs, approximately 62 millimeters by 83 millimeters, and they fit snugly inside of here, and then this goes into the accessory port as well, right inside of the halo. What is the halo? Well, let's get to that. We'll start with the tower. The tower has several areas, the staging area and the control panel. We'll start with the staging area. On the staging area, you have the halo. This is this little ring. It contains two hemispheres of light. There is a left half and a right half of the ring, the halo itself. Then there is a knob to control its tilt. You can tilt that back and forth. You will see on this little plate around the knob, there is a plus and a minus sign and some numbers. These are used as a gauge so that you can either write down your settings or you can follow along with videos that I'll produce in the future that tell you how to set it for certain things that I'm shooting. So it's a great way of just communicating between Halumin C users on what your settings were when you got a certain shot. There's also this accessory port right here. This is where these accessories plug in to the Halumin and fit into that slot just like that. And then you also have the tower panel. This light is a light panel. It can be used two different ways. When the lid is off, it's used as sort of an ambient fill light. Whenever the lid is placed on the device, this light panel powers what we call the field light. The field light is whenever this panel passes through a polarization filter that is here, and then it bounces on a piece of plexiglass that is inside of there. It creates both a front light, a straight down front light for the coin, as well as a milky white reflection if the coin is a proof or a really shiny surface. The lid blocks out the rest of the ambient light, so you don't get additional reflections and you don't get weird colors and things like that. So that's what the lid does. Another accessory that you will get that works with the lid is this little plate. This is essential because it makes the hole, the viewing hole, narrower, smaller, so that when you put the phone on top, it blocks all of the light on the top. This lid is about light control. It's about blocking out everything except for the light that the device creates, so that you have very specific controls over your light. So those are the basic accessories and the parts of the lid and the staging area. On the back, you have what we call the control panel. The control panel consists of three sliders that are numbered 1, 2, 3. This number 1 slider controls the light panel, also the field light whenever the lid is placed on, and then the left and the right hemisphere of the halo are controlled by 2 is the left, 3 is for the right. You have the power button. This turns power onto the lights themselves. And you have the power plug, plugs in. When it plugs in, this light comes on. This is the current light, and it will just tell you that you've got enough juice to power the device. If it is red, you don't have enough juice. If it is green, you either have enough juice or maybe you have way too much juice. You always want to use a power supply that delivers 12 to 15 volts at 1 amp. So the power supply that we supply with it, the AC power supply, perfectly gives you 12 volts at 1 amp. If you're using a battery, which you can, we do not make them, but we have an affiliate link for these. We recommend them because we have tested them. But you can use any battery power bank that will give you 12 volts of output. Most of them don't. You have to specifically find one that will deliver a 12 volt output. So 12 to 15 volts from the power bank. And then you need a special cable that converts from the USB-C or USB plugs out to the port, the round port that goes into the back. And so you can power with batteries with these two accessories, and you'll find those links below this video and on the website. But today we're going to be working with the AC power supply that we supply with the Halumin device. So the first thing you're going to do is flip the power switch on by pressing this little toggle switch. The line is pushing in, and then have all of the sliders off. Just so you can see real quick, slider 1 is that tower light. Slider 2 is 1/2 of the halo, and slider 3 is the other half of the halo. And then you have your knob to pivot the halo back and forth. Start out by setting the halo at 0 so that it is perfectly horizontal to the horizon and all of the sliders down. And then place the lid on top of the Halumin device. You want to do this so that it fits in between this white disc and the tower, sandwiches perfectly in there, and then it sits solidly. That's when you know you got a firm fit. This is exactly how it should be seated. Before we do that, we need to put a subject in, but that's how you apply the lid. Let's start with the adjustable pedestal. The pedestal itself goes into the accessory port, and you want to make sure that the height is such that the top of the subject that you're going to be photographing or videoing is in line with about the bottom of this ring. So twist it either clockwise or counterclockwise, and then when you put your subject on, we're going to use this new pince. The bottom of her chin is going to be in the direction of this tower. That will make sense whenever you put the phone on. You're going to set the phone like this, and you want it basically lined up with the perspective of how you would want to photograph it. So now that we've got the pedestal and the coin in there, we are going to place the viewer lid on top of the device like this. We're going to place the phone accessory shield here, and then we're going to start by raising sliders 2 and 3 to the setting of 4. So these numbers here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we want to set both of those at 4 power. Once we do that, we have the slider knob set at 0, and we are then going to open up the camera app on our phone, and we're going to set it so the camera is peering straight down into the device, just like that. Center the coin in the middle, and you can see from this angle, that's not the most attractive. I'll take a picture and post that. That's not the most attractive looking image, but this is your starting position. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set the camera on the phone so that it works really well with the Halumin. How you do that? First thing you do is you want to zoom in. So I'm going to go to 3. The newer iPhones go to 5. 5 needs to be farther away from the subject to properly focus. So you kind of want to just zoom in and like not be on 5 because it will always be blurry. with Android phones. There's so many different phones at this point. Get with your AI or with Google or however you find information online. Look at your device and look up your device and find the answers to the questions on how to do the settings. I'll tell you what you need to do, but every phone's a little bit different. This is just an iPhone, I think 12, so it's an older iPhone. But right now we've zoomed in with 3 on the iPhone and we've filled up, we've got a good presentation of the coin. So we want to center it just so we have enough room to work with. And next thing we want to do is lock the exposure and the focus so that when I'm changing the lights, the camera is not trying to adjust for that. We want the camera to be fixed, it doesn't move, and you do all the work with the lights. So the first thing you do on an iPhone and an Android is you press and hold until you see that happen. It will go bloop, 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 and then it will lock into place. When that happens, your exposure lock is done. On an iPhone, that also means that autofocus and exposure. On an Android, it just means that autofocus is locked. Android, you'll have to look up the exposure settings are in a separate area. You want to lock the exposure setting and bring it down. But the next thing you want to do is right now, this whole coin is evenly lit, but you can see it's so bright that the background, which is black, is like gray, and you can see sort of the texture of the carpet fuzz. We don't want that. We actually want it to be darker than that because what we're in it is inspection mode right now, which means that we want the field of that coin to be pretty dark, and all we want to see is those outlines around the edges. So I'm going to lower the exposure down by darkening it. That's going to make the background pitch black, and it's going to make the field of that coin a lot darker. Something like that is what we're going for. I'll take a picture and put it on there. But this is a good starting position. The way that you know that it's set, for one thing, it says AF lock, which is auto exposure, autofocus lock. And on your Android, again, you'll have to adjust the exposure lock separately. But you know you've got it set right when it's in focus, when the exposure looks good, and when you take the sliders 2 and 3 and you bring them down, it goes to black, and it doesn't try to keep brightening up the exposure to match that. If it brightens it up when you fade, look up how to do an exposure lock on your particular model of phone. And then when we bring it back up to 4, it goes there. And we've got a little bit more room where we can make it brighter by taking it up to 5, but that's where we had it started at. So what we're in right now we call inspection mode. And I'll just go through that really quick without touching these sliders anymore. They're both set at 4. I can take the knob, and by tilting the halo back and forth, you can see it changes the light on the face of the coin. That light is articulating back and forth. It's grazing the surface of that a little bit differently, and it's bringing out the specific details in different parts of the coin. So this is really useful if you're inspecting the coin. You just put your phone on there, set it up, and then you can use the screen to kind of like look at the various things that you want to look at. You can also create a video of just doing that. It's actually really useful to just show the quality of the coin. So it's a great way of just sort of making additional assets for people to be able to inspect every detail of the coin if you're trying to sell it online or present it online. So you can see in this situation, the field of the coin is dark and the outside edges of anything that is raised or lowered has a white glow around it. Almost looks unnatural. The other control that we have, slider 1, the one that we haven't brought up, is the field light. It is going to do exactly the opposite of what the halo does. It's going to create a situation where all of the flat surfaces are super illuminated and all the edges are dark. So watch what happens when I crossfade between these two settings, and I'm going to take this slider 1 up. When I take 2 and 3 down, the actual image on the face of the coin is going to look like a negative. it's going to look like a negative of the image that you see now. So watch what happens. I'm going to go whoosh. And now we've got it completely reverse. We've got the field is bright and all the edges of the coin. Looks like it's a little dark on that exposure, so I can bring that up just a touch. So when I crossfade back and forth, it creates the edge. All the edges go dark and the front light goes bright. When I bring the halo up and the field down, then the field goes dark and all the edges go bright. This gives you two completely different zones of control, and by mixing those things you can get completely different results. So let's start if I was just using the field light and not the halo. So 2 and 3 sliders are all the way down and slider 1 is all the way up. For one thing, this knob does nothing in this mode. The lights that are on that halo are not illuminated, so when I turn this knob, nothing is going to change. But you can see the face of the coin. Now the edges are dark and the front-facing elements are bright. This is actually really good for certain situations. For one thing, if you have a toned coin, a light like this is going to illuminate that color in a really natural way, but also in a way that's going to bring the true color of it out a lot. So if you're trying to photograph a toned coin or specific coloring, the field light is the light that's going to give you the best results just specifically for the coloring. It's also a really natural, kind of no-frills light. A lot of coin photography is actually shot in this way, just that direct downlight. The other thing that the field light is really good for is if this was a chrome coin, had a mirror-like finish on it, like a proof or something like that, the field light itself creates a reflection that's really pleasant and brings out the chromeness of it, for lack of a better word. With anything that's shiny, you want to use the field light at least to create a reflection. It doesn't even have to be super bright. In a lot of cases, you can do it at like 2, and it'll glow enough just to give you the right reflection, but not this overpowering bright light. Remember, it's all about balance, so you want enough light in there where you can bring the different sliders up and achieve different effects. The field light, just because it's going through a filter and then projecting onto a surface and bouncing down, is significantly dimmer for the most part than the halo lights that are direct light. You want to just play with the balance, but this is the field light only. The halo consists of those two hemispheres, right? So watch what happens when I've got 2 and 3 up at 5 right now, but if I take 2 down, then we've got a very specific directional light. We've got light on the face, the actual physical face like it's a portrait of Elizabeth, and all of the other side that is not facing that front half of the halo, that's got a dark edge on it. This is a really good way of showing the depth of the coin. It's accentuating the depth, but it still looks a little unnatural and maybe a little dark if this was the setting, if you were trying to get a setting that you wanted to photograph it with. It just depends on what you're going for, right? There are no rules in terms of this is a great way of seeing the depth of the coin, and if the story that you're trying to tell is about a detail that's raised like that, like a mint that's, like a misaligned mint mark or something like that, certain types of lighting are going to really accentuate that and make it obvious. Watch what happens though when I tilt the knob. Right now, again, I've only got slider 3 up. The other sliders 1 and 2 are completely down. So there's only 1/2 of the halo hemisphere. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to tilt it like this so that it's coming up above the coin more. So I'm moving it to like a -1, -2, -3 position on the knob. And when I do that, you can see a lot more front light hits the coin and it gets a lot brighter. But you can see just by moving the knob, I can adjust the brightness of the field and soften the light on the coin. So that's a much softer look when it's all the way at 3, and then when it goes to 2 and 1 and 0, it gets much darker and much like more contrasty between the two layers of the coin. When I bring slider 2 back up, now that we're at 0, so it's a flat halo, bring slider 2 back up, I'm bringing a little bit of light back into that opposing side. So maybe slider 2 is sitting at 2 and slider 3 is sitting at 4 in this scenario. It's still slightly brighter on the slider 3 side than the slider 2 side, creates more of a gradient. If I was trying to photograph this in a way that looked really natural, what I might do is take slider 2 back down completely, tilt slider 3, or tilt the tilt knob so that the light on, it was at setting 3, so that the light is at a hard angle and it's coming all on one side, and bring some of that brightness down. Now we've got some nice edges. The coin is really well lit, but maybe it's a little too contrasty, so I can bring the field light in just a little bit until it looks like a solid piece of silver and it's not too dark in the dark areas. So have fun with the settings, just play with it. That would be what we'd actually call beauty mode when you're just mixing all of those settings together. So with the lid on and with those sliders, those are the controls that you have. You have slider 1, that is the field light, the direct front light coming down, dark edges. 2 and 3 will illuminate the edges, and depending on how you use the tilt, you can create a number of different looks. You can take the lid off and the camera will usually just stay on it, so it's kind of handy because you don't have to keep readjusting the camera every time. But I'm going to put this back level, turn those off, and we're going to take the adjustable pedestal and that coin out for the moment, and we're going to put the slab pedestal in place. So the slab pedestal just goes back in that accessory port, just like that. What this will allow you to do is just easily align the slab so that it's not going to hit the edges of the halo when the halo tilts. So that little slab goes in there, and now when I tilt the halo back and forth, it stays out of its way. So that's super useful. So now we're going to bring the halo back to 4. So sliders 2 and 3 at 4. And then we're going to put the lid back on. All right, so what has changed? Well, we're going to align this back up so that we've got a nice centered subject, first of all. And now you're going to see that you've got that coin in the slab and it's a little bit dark. So I'm going to turn the knob again to -3 all the way over, and I'm going to readjust. I'm going to turn off slider 2 because at -3, slider 3 is like all the way up and the light is on this side. So it's front lighting it from an angle. That angle is accentuating those textures, but it's a little dark, so I'm going to readjust my exposure setting. You do the press and hold thing again, and then you adjust the brightness until it looks like it's the right exposure that you're looking for. So let's start with that. So now I've got room. I can make it a little brighter. I can make it a little darker. When I turn it off, it goes to black, which means that I've got a lot of room to work with it. Now, when you're working with a slab, you basically have like a mirror over the top of your coin so that anything that is going to be reflective on the front of that is going to show on that if it's illuminated anyway. So right now, all we're doing is we're working with that half of the hemisphere, which is slider 3. But watch what happens. I'm going to turn slider 3 off so it's dark. Then slider 1, the field light, is going to create a little bit of complexity in that if you see as it comes up, it creates a glare. So what works really well for a reflective coin, because you see that milky white reflection on the face of it, works really, can work against you in a slab because you've got that reflective layer that is now creating a haze over the top of the coin that you're trying to see. But it works up until a point. If the coin that is in your slab has a reflection, then the field light doesn't need to be that bright. It just needs to be bright enough to read as a reflection. So you can take the field light up to about, putting it at like 1, and the glare is reasonable to work with. If that was shiny, that would be a nice sheen that would show up in the reflective surfaces. So how you work with the field light when you've got a slab and you're using the lid, the viewing lid, is you tilt this knob to the dominant side of the coin. So if there's a face on it and you want this side to be more lit, then you turn it this way, and that's going to make it like that. The light is going to be here, so it's going to illuminate. When you turn the knob this way, the light on the opposite side is going to get brighter. Turn it the other way, the light over here is going to get brighter. So I turn this to -3, and now when I bring up that slider, that looks really good. It shows a lot of depth. But say you've got a reflection and you want to see the reflectiveness in the coin itself, you have up until like 1 or 2 before the field light starts getting a little bit of a distraction. It's like that's set at 2 right there, and it would start to illuminate the face of the coin. So the other thing that you can see here, I'm going to take the field light, actually I'll keep it up. I'm bringing both of the hemispheres of the halo up to 3. So now when I flick the tilt knob back and forth, I can see the different, what the different sides look like. And they're, you might find that one really brings out more detail than the other. Specific shapes, it just depends on the pattern on the coin itself. But that's how you work with the lid on with a slab. With coins that are in slabs, you gain an additional benefit by taking the lid off. And one of the things that you want to do is work in a room where it's relatively dim, like not outside, and not have a big, bright overhead light that is overpowering this. So in a dim room with no direct lighting on it, you can do a lot more with the lid off. I'm going to turn the halo back to 0, and you'll see now, I'm going to take everything, I'm going to take the slider 1 down, and 2 and 3, I'm going to keep them at 3 for now, so the halo is flat. Another thing that happens on my phone a lot that it just did, and something that you should keep in mind, is oftentimes the phone, the operating system, if it doesn't know what it's looking for, it'll switch you into macro mode. Macro mode is only good if you're really right up close to the coin. So if you see that little flower light up there, just disconnect that, and you might have to do that multiple times. So right now we've got the halo, we've got the similar controls that we had with the lid on and off. I'm just holding the phone here over the tower. But the tower light now no longer has that mirror to bounce it straight down, so it's not going to be a glare in the base of the slab anymore. It's not going to show at all. What it's going to do is make a diffused side light. It's actually very similar to the way that a lot of coin grading companies, whenever they make pictures, they'll use just like a flat softbox on one side of the coin. So if I take sliders 2 and 3 out completely, I've got a big studio light here, so it's never going to get completely dark with the lid off. But watch what happens when I bring that back on. That's actually a really nice natural light, and again, there's no glare happening because the light is over here. It's not on top of it reflecting back. So you can use this as a diffused, just ambient light, and then you can combine that with one of your side lights. So right now I've got slider 1 and slider 3, at 5, and then I've got the knob tilted to -3 so that it gets an angle on that, and that creates a really good light for this coin in a slab. Again, no glare on it because of the position of the lights. So I'm going to turn everything off here, but that is the gist of how you do those two different types of coins. You also have the ability to shoot the edges of the coin or do macro shots where your camera is like right up against the face of it. So with the lid off, you can get right up in there and use it for macro shots, but you can also photograph your edges by turning slider 1 off and then 2 and 3 up and tilting the halo itself. You can now set the exposure lock on the edge of the coin and bring that exposure down. And that is a great way to illuminate and photograph the edges of the coin, because there are certain details that you're really only going to be able to see from that side. Just remember, when you're working with the lid off, you don't want to have a lot of bright lights like I do now. You just want a really dim room without a lot of direct light. I hope that that helps you understand how to use your new Halumin C and work with it. I'm going to create more tutorials where I'll be photographing specific items and showing you different things, but this is a good starting point. The main thing is take it, experiment with it. Try all the levers, try all the buttons, try different things, and keep track of the settings that work for you. Everybody's going to want slightly different things. You have a slightly different eye, you want to see slightly different things, so you're going to dial into a specific way of setting it that works for you. The great thing is it's a tool that gives you a lot of variety to work with, and I can't wait to see what you do with yours. My name is Jeremy Mason McGraw, and I hope that you found some value in this video. Please follow us for more as we post more things on the Halumin C as well as on the other Halumin products. We're excited to have you along on this journey, and let me know if you have any questions or comments, or you just want to share some of the cool stuff that you've done with your Halumin C. I would love to see it, and I would love to share that with other Halumin users. Thank you, and have a great journey with your Halumin C.